The Grand Canyon, America's most visited natural wonder. Yet there are places where no human has ever set foot. A land of profound mysteries.
There are clues that we have to piece together to understand how this system evolved.
Now, an epic river journey will reveal the Grand Canyon you don't know. From its mile-high marvels to its deep secrets. The wilderness, the wildness of the Grand Canyon. America's heavyweight wonder of the world. Never was a place better named. The Grand Canyon. One of the only landforms on the planet that can be seen from space. Big enough to hold 10 Mount Everests end to end. Walls that plunge a mile straight down. Nearly 5 million visitors a year stand on the edge of a chasm 1 billion times their size. It's a wondrous view, but hidden from sight are the canyon's secrets and mysteries. They can only be seen by descending into the depths of this vast place, to the Colorado River, the force that started it all. Lee's Ferry, the extreme eastern end of the canyon. A rare scientific expedition makes final preparations for a 2-week journey down the Colorado. Martha Hahn is the canyon's chief scientist. She and her team will traverse the entire length of the river. This is the only way to access the canyon's best-kept secrets.
There are places here in Grand Canyon that are so remote, inaccessible, and almost like islands in the sky.
Martha will meet with other scientific teams she's sent ahead. They're already working at strategic points along the Colorado River. Each has a mission. Each has a scientific riddle to crack, including the biggest of them all, faced by Earth scientist Carl Bowman.
Looking at the geological record in a place like Grand Canyon is kind of like looking at the stars. It just boggles your mind, these slow processes, but operating over incredibly long periods of time.
The processes that shaped the canyon still baffle scientists. A river that should be flowing the other way. Rock levels of vastly different ages sitting right on top of each other. Can these mysteries ever be answered? Carl's been studying them for nearly 25 years. And in studying them, he's learned about the formation of the Earth itself. 33 miles from where they launched, the expedition lands at a key point in the canyon's geological timeline. This vast natural amphitheater, Red Wall Cavern, is evidence of the sheer power of water. Immense currents driving suspended sand did all this.
So all this sand is in suspension. It's scouring away at all these walls and just sandblasting and removing the limestone around the curve of that eddy as the river's carving Redwall Cavern deeper.
Fossil evidence in the walls reveals that the bottom of the canyon was once the bottom of the ocean. A vast field of aquatic plants.
They were just all over the place. Whole gardens of these on the shallow sea floors, filtering the seawater for their food.
The fossils help precisely date this limestone at 340 million years old. This dating is critically important to geologists because not far downriver, the timeline runs out. The expedition's now heading towards a billion-year gap in the geological record that no scientist can explain. One thing geologists do know is that the canyon was not formed by gradual erosion, but cataclysmic water events. It's still happening. The evidence is the canyon's famous rapids. Some of the most treacherous white water in the world. Exactly what now faces the expedition. The Grand Canyon has roughly one major rapid for every 2 miles of river. How they got there shows how the canyon itself was created. Rain in Arizona's high desert comes as short, intense storms. Drenching huge areas. Millions of tons of water channeled and concentrated into narrow canyons. Heading for the Grand Canyon itself. All that water finally erupts into the main Colorado Channel as massive flash floods. Powerful enough to carry giant boulders that can create rapids. That's why next to every side canyon is a rapid. Immense flash floods also helped form the Grand Canyon itself. Before man got in the way. The Glen Canyon Dam, 15 miles upriver from the Grand Canyon. It was built in the 1960s to generate electricity. This artificial structure, a mere 40 years old, has frozen the ancient canyon in time, drastically reducing the Colorado's water flow and its power to continue carving through the rock. The canyon will grow no deeper. The canyon's rapids, though, continue to be built by those flash floods through its side canyons.
That created this rapid, huh?
Yep.
The rapids of the Upper Granite Gorge, one of the most treacherous in the canyon. The expedition's chief river guide is Dave DeRosiers. He's been down the canyon over 50 times. But this stretch is always tough. Here, the Colorado River drops 30 feet in 300 yards. It's a whitewater minefield of boulders dumped by an ancient flash flood.
Should be a good ride.
It's a thrilling ride, and it can be dangerous. Whirling currents, jagged rocks, and a water temperature that can go as low as 47 degrees. In the last 20 years, almost 24 people have died from drowning, hypothermia, or cardiac arrest in the Colorado's icy waters. And the reason for that water temperature is once again the man-made structure upriver. The Glen Canyon Dam releases water into the canyon from the depths of the lake. That's why it's so cold. And the dams also change the natural balance of the canyon's wildlife. In particular, a strange and ancient fish called the humpback chub. The junction of the Colorado and the Little Colorado rivers. Biologist Brian Clark of the Arizona Game and Fish Department fights to save one of the canyon's most endangered fish. The humpback chub is a primeval creature. It survived largely unchanged for over 1 million years.
They look ancient. They look like they've been around for 1 million years, you know, and I have a lot of respect for that they've been able to withstand the changing environment for such a long time.
The humpback chub is also one of the planet's longest living freshwater fish. Some individuals have reached over 30 years of age. But now the chub is critically threatened. There may be as few as 6,000 left. The reason for the humpback chub's perilous existence is water temperature. The fish need warm water to successfully breed. The falling water temperatures caused by the Glen Canyon Dam sparked a massive decline in the fish population, forcing them into the shallower and warmer Little Colorado. It's their last breeding refuge in the canyon. And now they face a potentially catastrophic new threat. Arizona is in the grip of a drought that some scientists have linked to global warming. It's caused the water temperature of the Colorado to slightly rise. Not enough to significantly help the chub, but enough to allow one of its predators, the non-native striped bass, to gradually move upriver towards one of the humpback chub's last breeding grounds.
We've found them encroaching further and further upstream. Someday they might be able to make it all the way up into the Little Colorado and really decimate the juveniles. We've got a bluehead sucker.
If the bass ever reach the Little Colorado, it could be the final blow to the million-year-old humpback chub. And further proof that our actions can affect even something as immense as the Grand Canyon. Back at the Upper Granite Gorge, the expedition's second boat is about to run the rapids, with Chief Scientist Martha Hahn on board. Then, midway through its run, the boat collides heavily with a submerged rock. Its engine fails on the most dangerous section of the rapids. The expedition's boat has been crippled by the collision with the rock. River guide Jerry Riley tries to restart her engine. No luck. Then, it kicks into life. With a less experienced crew, this could have been a serious situation.
The motor hit a rock, which then caused the motor to go off. And as a result, we lost our momentum, got turned, and went into one of the bigger holes sideways. Spun out of that, luckily.
The boat's propeller is badly damaged by the impact and must be replaced before the expedition can continue. But they've made it far enough for Carl Bowman to investigate one of the Grand Canyon's central questions. Why doesn't the Colorado River flow the other way? For nearly 150 years, geologists presumed the Colorado River simply carved the canyon by flowing in one direction and cutting into the surrounding rock. The problem is, there's almost no way it could have happened like that. What happened near River Mile 70, an estimated 5 million years ago, is a geological impossibility. The ancient Colorado River was flowing north to south. Logic says it should have continued that way. But by mile 65, something happened. In just under 5 miles, the river suddenly makes a right-hand turn. This would have been uphill, directly into the face of a 2,000-foot mountain ridge and beyond. Why did it do this? And how did it cut through?
Right now, we have lots of ideas, but we don't know why. It's a geologic mystery that we're still trying to solve.
One explanation is that the Colorado River originally flowed in the opposite direction to today, and that some ancient geological cataclysm caused it to reverse its course. Another theory is that the entire canyon was caused by a megalake that overflowed and sent enough water with enough force to break through the wall of rock.
Geologists have been working on the canyon now for 150 years, and they've developed an incredible store of knowledge. And yet there are still these big unknowns left about the story of the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River.
The first humans in the Grand Canyon have different beliefs as to how it was formed. Octavia Siautua of the Native American Zuni tribe is a vital part of this expedition.
Our people came from the fourth underworld. They couldn't see the Supreme Being wanted the people to go up to the sunlight. He taught them means of how to evolve into a human form. When they came out, they had webbed hands and a tail, so they more or less looked like lizards.
Octavius will help the expedition answer some critical archaeological questions. Were the Grand Canyon's first human inhabitants far more advanced and numerous than we ever imagined? Were there permanent human settlements in the canyon?
We still have a history, we still have a connection to these areas. We're working now with the Park Service. We come down here and help the archaeologists identifying and giving more information about the sites.
The expedition's archaeological team has landed its boats farther down the river. They're digging for evidence about the early Native Americans who lived here. How many were there? How did they survive in this wild and inhospitable place? "11 Native American tribes, including Octavius's Zuni people, lived in the canyon. But for how long? Did they just pass through, or were they here permanently?"
It's like our mother, our womb that the people came from. I became a medicine man, and I'm designated to be the one that comes down to the canyon.
As a medicine man of the Zuni tribe, Octavius Siatua has been taught his tribe's oral history. This ancient knowledge allows him to interpret the symbols left by his ancestors. The Zuni's oral history is a guide for modern archaeologists about how the canyon's ancient people lived and survived.
The climates varied from year to year. The drought seasons came in, the monsoons came in, but they always managed to find an area where they could survive. With all the modern conveniences that we have nowadays, we try and connect back to the hard life that our ancestors had here.
As he travels through the canyon with the main expedition, Octavius visits known archaeological sites with Chief Scientist Martha Hahn. High on a remote bluff called Nankuip, Octavius examines granaries used by nomadic hunters and farmers.
This was probably storage areas for corn, mesquite beans, agave, things they used to survive.
Octavius hopes what the archaeologists have discovered farther down the river will provide final proof of permanent settlement in the canyon. His mission starts here with a visit to pay respect to his ancestors. His ancient song tells them they are not forgotten. Octavius's people left the canyon hundreds of years ago. Now he's back to help preserve their memory. A little farther downriver is his primary destination. An archaeological dig that may finally prove that permanent settlements did exist here in ancient times. The expedition's archaeological team digs at Palisades Creek on the eastern shore of the Colorado. This is one of the first major archaeological excavations in the Grand Canyon for 40 years.
I'm inside the structure.
Park archaeologist Lisa Leap and her team look for evidence that this was a human community that lived here year-round.
We've got 6 archaeological sites just along this mesquite line, up that way and down that way.
The key archaeological question as to whether this was a permanent settlement may be answered by a dramatic find: a large underground chamber. Lisa thinks it could be something called a kiva, a room used by ancient and modern Native Americans for ceremonial rituals. Only a permanent community would have a kiva. Lisa hopes Octavius's knowledge of the ceremonies and the details of a kiva's layout will confirm the find.
Words cannot describe how how lucky we are to be working so closely with tribes that are willing to share with us. We tell them what we find. They'll share with us how that was used, the function. So it's a great team. And that's how we identified that is something different.
Modern science paired with ancient knowledge. It's a powerful tool in probing the canyon's human history. And now, finally, the definitive word from Octavius.
What would you call that? That altar area or?
Yeah, it would be a niche area where they kept all of their items that they use, and with this shelf lining around it, it definitely is a kiva.
There's no doubt the archaeological team has found a kiva. It's a major find, perhaps the largest permanent community ever to call the canyon home.
It just ties into what I was feeling when I was up there at Nencowe. Singing that song just opened that a kiva would be found down here.
Every new discovery adds another tiny brushstroke to the scientific picture of the Grand Canyon. And there will be more discoveries as the expedition forges on downriver. The Grand Canyon seems so inhospitable. A vast expanse of arid rock and barren cliffs. But across its nearly 1.5 million acres and 8,000-foot elevation are 5 of the Earth's 7 ecosystems. From alpine to desert.
If you were to think about walking from Canada all the way down into Mexico, that's the type of transition and plant life you would see if you left the North Rim and came down to the bottom. So you see that vast change just here in a couple thousand feet.
Ranging across those extremes are the expedition's botanical teams. Botanists Kyle Christie and Brian Reef are part of a project to map the vegetation of the entire Grand Canyon National Park.
I think people that work in Grand Canyon develop an intense connection to the landscape.
I mean, you could spend lifetimes here and only see a portion of it. It's such a vast place.
Computer mapping expert Steve Metz will use this ground survey data along with aerial imagery of the park to create a vegetation map for the entire Grand Canyon.
But vegetation is a baseline information that the park needs for management to help better manage the park, to protect it for the future generations.
On the river, the main expedition joins up with another of its botanical teams, led by park botanist Lori McCarrick.
It's one of the more challenging, logistically challenging places to do work because of the remoteness of the areas. People just don't get up in there, and so there are a lot of species we probably don't even know exist, and we certainly don't know their fate. So they could come and go without us even knowing in Grand Canyon. A lot of people don't think of these small patches. They think of the vast sunsets and beautiful views, but if you really kind of get down close to the ground, you'll see there are so many small pieces of earth just like this that contain resources that are worthy of our protection.
When the ground survey teams finish their work and a complete vegetation map of the canyon is created, scientists will have an extraordinary tool. They'll be able to track changes to the canyon's vegetation, a key indicator of the greatest threat facing our planet, global warming.
We're going to use the vegetation and say the changes in the vegetation composition. That would be an indicator that global climate change is happening, the Earth is warming, and it's having an effect upon the natural world.
Monitoring the canyon's plant life is a long-term scientific project. Far more urgent is protecting the canyon's animal life, especially two of its largest creatures, masters of air and land, the elusive mountain lion, and the critically endangered condor. Today, the park's wildlife biology team tracks a mountain lion through the canyon's backcountry. Chief Wildlife Biologist R.V. Ward, Ranger Lori Rome, and biologist Rosa Pallarino are concerned that the mountain lion, codenamed P14, is heading out of the park, close to a major road.
It's probably pretty close. Going in this direction, looking east, the landscape will drop down and there's a drainage right here. It's most likely right below us in that drainage.
2 of the park's lions have been killed by cars in the last year alone.
Might drop down, like right there.
They hope P14 will turn away from the road and back into the park.
Most likely right below us in that drainage, not
Probably
too far.
on this down slope.
Definitely within half a mile. Yeah.
And probably less than that, I would imagine. Cool.
RV and his team are now within 200 yards of P14. Mountain lions are shy creatures and avoid humans whenever possible.
You got it.
The radio signal indicates the lion has finally changed course and turned away. That signal will have to do. For now, any direct contact with these mysterious creatures is not an option. The reason? A freakish tragedy that occurred just a few months ago.
Eric York was my carnivore wildlife-human interactions biologist, one of the best biologists I'd ever worked with. He was a colleague.
Late October 2007, Eric York receives a mortality signal from the radio collar on a female mountain lion, codenamed P13.
Eric tracked down the lion and found P13 dead, and he was curious what killed her.
Eric carried the lion to his vehicle, then drove to park headquarters. There, he performed a necropsy to determine the cause of death.
And when he opened it up, he didn't know this. When he opened it up, he got a full blast of pneumonic plague.
Pneumonic plague is the most virulent form of bubonic plague. The medieval world knew it as the Black Death, when it killed 1/3 of Europe's entire population. What few people realize is that bubonic plague is endemic to the Grand Canyon and much of southwestern USA. It is transmitted by fleas on the rodents that live along the Colorado River. A set of incredible coincidences allowed the plague bacteria to be transmitted from an infected rodent or flea to the mountain lion P13 to Eric York. He died on November 2nd, 2007. Eric York's death was a 1 in a million chance. Far more often, it's the wildlife that suffers in any animal-human interaction. Even those that spend their time riding the air currents high above the canyon's rim. The California condor is one of the world's most endangered birds. It lives exclusively in the southwest region of North America. And up on the rim, a scientist believes he may have finally answered one of the canyon's most puzzling questions. What caused the condor's near extinction? It's one of the world's largest and longest living birds. But there are only about 300 left on Earth, with 150 in the wild. The canyon is one of their last wild refuges on the planet. But for how long? For over 10 years, scientists from the private Peregrine Fund have bred California condors and released them into the Grand Canyon in a desperate bid to save the species.
The all-time low for the entire population in California, everywhere for that matter, was 22 individuals. We began releasing birds in 1996 and today have a population of 64 individuals.
Biologist Chris Parrish leads a team that constantly monitors the canyon's condors. They try to solve a problem. Condors still die mysteriously, still in grave danger of extinction.
Now this is where we'll need help holding the feet.
Through intensive blood monitoring over the last 8 years, Chris determined that the condor's most common cause of death was lead poisoning. But where was the lead coming from? The source was a mystery, but the symptoms unmistakable.
The digestive system is paralyzed, so they continually eat because they have that hunger, but their gut no longer works. Usually they die of a secondary infection as a result of having this huge crop of rotting food, and their digestive system is totally paralyzed.
Chris's research uncovered a suspicious coincidence. Most condors were dying after the hunting season in areas bordering the Grand Canyon. He suspected the canyon's condors were scavenging on animals killed by lead bullets. Could fragmented bullets be the culprit? Chris runs a series of experiments at a firing range. He fires regular lead bullets into a barrel containing jugs of water.
And immediately what we notice is here, you can see on the board itself. We've seen as many as 700, 500 fragments in a gut pile. That's what's discarded and left in the field.
Chris discovered that no matter how carefully hunters clean their kills, tiny lead fragments will always remain, enough to poison and kill condors. Now, Chris's mission is convincing hunters to use non-leaded ammunition.
We've had fantastic success working with the hunters to basically gain their support by using non-lead ammunition that doesn't fragment into hundreds of pieces.
The case of the condor shows humans are often totally unaware that their simplest interaction with a wild space can have devastating results.
We have the opportunity to put our best foot forward with science and research to not allow for ignorance to be the cause of a loss of a species.
But with one problem being solved, another emerges. At the monitoring station, Chris and his team suddenly spot something on a ledge below.
Yeah, that's no good.
The condor is dead.
What do you think happened?
Don't know. Last time this happened, it was lead.
It's a huge loss. They must find out the cause.
She's bird 162, right? Yeah, it's a female. Just come of age, breeding age female.
How long do you think she was down there? When do you think?
It's been a day.
They carry the dead condor to the Peregrine Fund's mobile lab, where Chris x-rays it.
Oh no.
What is that up top?
That would be a quarter.
A coin is lodged in the condor's gullet. Unable to feed, it would have suffered a lingering death. It happened because of human ignorance. A condor killed by swallowing a coin is extremely rare. But then, so is the condor itself. Every death is a tragedy for the species. A lookout point on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. Visitors toss coins into the void to make a wish. It's a sobering illustration of the power man has to impact a place even as vast as the Grand Canyon. Whether it's with a structure as massive as a dam or an object as small as a coin. The main expedition is now deep in what's called the Inner Canyon. Up to now, the Colorado has slowly carved its way through time, down through older and older layers of rock. Now, suddenly, there's a billion-year gap in the geological record.
This is one of those geological mysteries here at the Grand Canyon. Here we have rock that's 1.7 billion years old, 1.7, 1.7, boom, 525 million years old. That line right there represents a billion years of Earth history that was just erased from this part of the Grand Canyon. And the gap between those two rock layers is what we call the Great Unconformity.
The Great Unconformity is a planet-wide geological mystery. Nowhere is it more spectacularly evident than in the Grand Canyon. All across the globe, there is the same billion-year gap in the geological record. That represents 25% of the entire history of the Earth. In those billion years, continents shifted, mountain ranges came and went, oceans filled and drained. Massive volcanic eruptions occurred. But it's all been eroded away. And making the leap across that billion-year gap, life on Earth as we know it. Scientists can only guess at how life evolved from primitive bacteria to complex organisms during these missing billion years. The expedition came seeking answers, but the questions posed by the Great Unconformity remain beyond human grasp. 2 weeks, 277 miles. This unique scientific odyssey nears its end. The boats must pass through the canyon's last major rapids, Lava Falls. One final wild ride to remind the scientists of the natural power by which this place came to be. Beyond Lava Falls, the Whitewater is behind them. The Great Walls slowly recede. The flatlands of Arizona's high desert begin again. It's been an epic journey through one of the planet's most awesome and mysterious landforms. They have learned much. How the canyon's first inhabitants survived and settled in this wild place. The life and death role humans play in the canyon's wildlife. How its plants may help warn us of coming climatic dangers. But the canyon will keep its deepest secrets, perhaps forever, hidden in its ancient stone, hidden by the immensity of time. Its past may never be fully understood, but its future is in our hands. Although we seem so tiny in the midst of such vastness, we are its only guardians.